The Gaza conflict and face-off with Russia are just two of the foreign policy crises facing the Obama administration. With us now, retired General Jim Jones. He's a former national security advisor to President Obama and a former Middle East envoy. General, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
Time magazine cover story just out. Cold War II, the West is losing Putin's dangerous game. Are we losing Putin's dangerous game?
I think that's a little premature, but there's definitely a seismic shift, if you will, in terms of the relations between Russia and the West and the United States in particular, and it's one that is brought about by Mr. Putin itself. If you contrast the relationship between his predecessor and President Obama and Mr. Putin and President Obama, you have really a marked shift in not only personal relationships, but also, as a consequence, national relationships.
Does the plane crash change anything, though?
I'm sorry?
Does the plane crash, does the grounding of the plane change the perception of Putin and the will of the West to do something?
Well, it should. I mean, this is a to the extent that Russian fingerprints are in any way connected with this, and you'd have to really be naive to try to come to the conclusion that there's no Russian involvement here. Now, I don't know if there's a fingerprint on the launch button, but time will tell. So I think that that this is, if this isn't a defining moment, it should be, and shame on us and shame on our European friends if they don't react accordingly.
You know, I was going to say, you've met him. What can you tell us about him? Because I saw Mike Morrell on Bob Schieffer's Face the Nation described him as a bully and a thug. Accurate description, and how should he be dealt with?
Well, I was privileged to be with the president at the first meeting that he ever had with Mr. Putin, and it was a short, well, it was supposed to be a short meeting, but it turned out to be an hour-and-a-half lecture by Mr. Putin on global events since 1945 and how he interprets them. And basically, he is what he appears to be. He is a longtime KGB agent. He was brought up in the Cold War. The West is his natural enemy. He has never gotten over the fact that of the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact and the Soviet Empire. He believes that the West treated Russia horribly in its hour of need, and also believes that we reneged on a gentleman's agreement that we wouldn't annex any of the former Soviet states into NATO,
General,
all of which he says you did, and you did it with impunity, and that's something I can never forgive.
General, what I hear is that some of Putin's actions are because he senses weakness. Weakness on the part of President Obama to act in Syria, and so that when he sees a vacuum, he acts, and that may be driving some of his actions. How do you see it?
Well, there's no question that that the United States influence in various parts of the world is having some difficulties. Now, we would be talking for.
Does he sense weakness?
I don't know. I mean, you'd have to ask him. But there are certain things. There are certain events on the planet that people talk about. Syria, our failure to be stronger in Syria is one. Our reaction to the Arab Spring is another. It kind of depends on who you talk to, but there's no question that as we try to disengage from two different wars, and the aftermath of the aftertaste, I should say, of those wars is still with us. It colors the perception of the United States, and as a result, the president.
Yeah, but I mean, if I was president, it'd be important to know what people like you thought about his intention, and if he perceived us to be weak, to do something to eliminate that perception.
Well, there's no question that he has made some judgments about what he thinks the U.S. will respond or will do and will not do. But more importantly, I think we should also bear in mind that I think Mr. Putin is engaged in a long-term strategic plan to get as much separation between us and our European allies as he possibly can. And energy comes into play dramatically here. So I think our response shouldn't be completely tactical. It ought to be very strategic as well. And I think we have a lot to say with regard to the flow of energy around the world, and I think we have a lot to say with the flow of energy to Europe if we take it as a strategic issue.
There's got to be a united front against Putin with the United States and Europeans as well.
Well, I think this is a moment where our longtime European allies and the newer ones on the East are somewhat divided in terms of how you respond to Russia. And this is one time when a unanimity of opinion would be a good thing. And I might also add that this is a pretty critical time for some revitalization of NATO also.
General Jones, good to see you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.